December 13th, 1939. 0614 hours. The mouth of the River Plate, 150 miles off the coast of Uruguay. First light breaking grey over a flat sea. 3 British cruisers close on a single German raider that has already sunk 9 merchant ships across the South Atlantic and Indian Ocean without ever being caught. The raider is the Admiral Graf Spee, a pocket battleship built specifically to outrun anything strong enough to sink her and outgun anything fast enough to catch her. 6 11-inch guns, armor a full cruiser could not crack, a top speed that let her simply leave slower opponents behind. The 3 ships closing on her are HMS Exeter, 1 heavy cruiser carrying 6 8-inch guns, an HMS Ajax, and HMS Achilles, 2 light cruisers carrying 8 6-inch guns apiece. None of them individually outguns her. None of them individually outarmors her. Naval doctrine on both sides said a pocket battleship built to defeat exactly this kind of squadron should win this fight without difficulty. In the next 80 minutes, Commodore Henry Harwood's 3 undersized cruisers will hit the Graf Spee so hard and so cleverly that her captain will run for neutral harbor rather than fight his way home. 4 days later, with nothing more than a well-placed rumor, the Royal Navy will finish the job without firing another shot. This is how 3 ships that were never supposed to win, won. The problem began in August 1939, when Graf Spee slipped out of Wilhelmshaven into the Atlantic 2 weeks before Germany invaded Poland, positioning herself to strangle British trade the moment war was declared. She was a Deutschland-class Panzerschiff, a ship type the Treaty of Versailles was supposed to have made impossible. Restricted to 10,000 tons on paper, she actually displaced over 16,000, armored and armed like a battleship while retaining a cruiser's speed of 28 knots. Diesel engines gave her a cruising range of 19,000 nautical miles without refueling, longer than any comparable warship afloat. Built for exactly one mission: vanish into open ocean, sink merchant shipping, and outrun or outfight anything sent to stop her. By December 1939, Captain Hans Langsdorff had sunk 9 ships and 50,000 tons of British and Allied shipping without ever being brought to action. The Admiralty had 8 separate hunting groups searching 3 oceans and had not landed a single hit. Commodore Harwood, commanding Force G off the South American coast, did something the rulebook did not require. Working from nothing more than the pattern of Graf Spee's sinkings and a hunch about where a raider looking for one more target before Christmas would go, he moved his 3 cruisers to the River Plate estuary on his own judgment, days before he had any confirmation she was headed there. Every merchant convoy in and out of Argentina and Uruguay funneled through those waters. If Langsdorff wanted one more kill before running for home waters, this is where he would look. Harwood gambled his entire squadron on that logic, and on the morning of December 13th, Graf Spee's lookout sighted mastheads on the horizon exactly where he had placed his ships to wait for her. On paper, the encounter should not have been close. Graf Spee's 11-inch shells weighed over 660 pounds and could punch through Exeter's armor at almost any range in the engagement. Exeter's 8-inch shells weighed roughly 250 pounds. Ajax and Achilles fired 6-inch shells of around 100 pounds each, effective against unarmored ships, but marginal against a pocket battleship's belt. Adding every gun on all 3 British cruisers together still produced less destructive weight per broadside than Graf Spee alone, and her single hull was better protected than any of theirs. If Langsdorff had recognized what he was looking at and disengaged at long range using his speed advantage, doctrine says he escapes clean. He did not disengage, believing the approaching ships were escorting a merchant convoy rather than a deliberate hunting squadron. He turned to close the range and destroy what he thought was easy prey. That single misjudgment, made in the first 4 minutes, is the hinge the entire battle turns on. Harwood's answer to being outgunned was not to match Graf Spee gun for gun. It was doctrine, rehearsed for months before this exact scenario. He split his 3 ships into 2 divisions and attacked from 2 directions simultaneously, Exeter alone from the west, Ajax and Achilles together from the northeast. A single German fire control officer, however skilled, can only concentrate the full weight and accuracy of his guns against one attacking group at a time, Divide the threat axis, and you divide his effectiveness, even if his weapons remain unchanged. Langsdorff had to choose. He chose Exeter first, recognizing the heavier cruiser as the greater long-range threat, and put 3 11-inch shells into her within the opening 20 minutes. One wrecked B turret, another killed most of the bridge crew and wounded her cap. Frederick Bell, who kept fighting the ship from an improvised aft steering position with a boat's compass. Exeter lost 2 of her 3 turrets, took on a list, and 61 of her crew were killed. By any conventional measure, she was finished as a fighting unit and turned away to nurse her wounds. But while Graf Spee's guns were fixed on Exeter, Ajax and Achilles closed to under 8,000 yards, well inside their own effective range, and poured 6-inch fire into Graf Spee's upper works with a rate of fire her heavier, slower-loading 11-inch guns could not match shell for shell. Splinter damage tore through her galley, fuel processing plant, and desalination equipment, none of it protected by her main belt because none of it was designed to matter in a fight against a proper battleship. Graf Spee had been built to survive exactly the kind of hit no one had thought to armor against. Hits that crippled her ability to operate at sea for any extended period, rather than hits that could sink her outright. By late morning, with roughly 60 of his crew dead or wounded and his ship unable to make repairs at sea, Langsdorff turned for the nearest port that would take him, Montevideo, in neutral Uruguay. If you're finding this deep dive into the Royal Navy's use of deception and doctrine interesting, a quick subscribe helps the channel keep telling these stories. International law gave Langsdorff 72 hours in a neutral harbour before he had to leave or be interned. Harwood, badly outgunned and down to 2 damaged cruisers outside the estuary, could not force the issue by strength alone. So the Admiralty manufactured strength instead. British intelligence fed false signals traffic suggesting the battle cruiser HMS Renown and the aircraft carrier Ark Royal were steaming hard for the River Plate, backed by additional cruisers already reported nearby. None of it was true in the time frame Langsdorff had to act. Uruguayan officials, British diplomats, and planted newspaper reports all reinforced the same story. Leave the harbour, and a force capable of destroying Graf Spee outright would be waiting. Langsdorff had no reliable way to verify any of it, and every hour of delay made the deception more convincing simply because he still hadn't been sunk. On the evening of December 17th, rather than risk his remaining crew in what he believed was a hopeless fight, Langsdorff sailed Graf Spee a short distance outside Montevideo harbour and scuttled her, opening her seacocks and detonating demolition charges in full view of thousands of spectators who had gathered on the shore expecting a final battle that never came. 3 days later, in a hotel room in Buenos Aires, he wrote a letter stating that he could not in good conscience risk the lives of his remaining crew for a fight he now believed unwinnable. Wrapped himself in the ensign of the old Imperial German Navy rather than the swastika flag, and took his own life. The tactical result of the Battle of the River Plate was, on the naval ledger, almost a draw. No German ship was sunk in combat. No British ship was lost. Exeter would spend over a year in dockyard hands before fighting again. But the strategic result was total. Germany's most successful commerce raider of the early war, a ship built specifically to be unbeatable by cruiser squadrons, was destroyed without a single further shot fired, brought down not by matching her firepower, but by splitting her attention, hitting the parts of her no one had armoured, and finishing the job with a story the Royal Navy never had to prove was true. Harwood was knighted within weeks. The action became required study at staff colleges on both sides of the Atlantic, cited for decades afterward as the textbook case of an outgunned force defeating a superior one through coordinated attack and information warfare rather than raw broadside weight. The Admiral Graf Spee was designed to outrun anyone strong enough to sink her and outgun anyone fast enough to catch her. She met 3 ships that individually could do neither, and lost anyway, because Harwood understood something Langsdorff's own naval architects had missed. A ship built to win a fair fight can still be beaten by an unfair one. 3 undersized British cruisers proved it in 80 minutes off the River Plate, and finished the job 4 days later with nothing heavier than a rumour.